This video will cover the future value of an annuity and the present value of an annuity, and will compare and contrast ending annuities versus beginning annuities. It's probably worth your while to make sure that you have viewed the lump sum video that I prepared, where I calculated and discussed the present value of a lump sum and the future value of a lump sum. You can look at annuities, which will be covered in this video, as basically a series of lump sum payments. So if you understand lump sum, present value, and future value, you'll have a better foundation for how annuities work. Okay, let's discuss the future value of an annuity, abbreviated FVA. Probably the best way to introduce this concept is to give an example. And so we're going to give an example consistent with the way I presented the material when we covered the present value and future value of a lump sum. So it's important, like I said earlier, to review that video. And so here's the example. We're going to have an annuity that lasts 3 periods, N periods 3. And we're going to have a payment equal to $100 each period. And we're going to have an interest rate, and that's the I/Y. These are literally buttons on your calculator for a financial calculator that I'm using, the BA2 Plus from Texas Instruments. And then what we have is we need to look at a present value, and that present value will be 0. And what we want to compute is a future value of the annuity. And your button on your calculator will just say future value. It'll know that it's an annuity because you're using the payment button here. See, we're using this payment button. That means the calculator is going to know it's a future value of an annuity. And so the button is just FV. But I'm going to spell it out as FVA so we're clear, just like I did up here. So this doesn't make a lot of sense until you actually draw a timeline. So here's our timeline. We're going to get $100 here, $100 here, and $100 here. So now, before we go any further, notice the payments start 1 year from now, 2 years from now, and 3 years from now. The first payment starts at the end of the year, the end of the year, the end of the end of the year. That's why this is called an ending annuity, or literally END on your calculator. When your calculator comes right out of the box, it's going to be set to do an ending annuity. And if you don't hear any other adjectives describing an annuity, it's generally an ending annuity that you're going to be dealing with. In a few minutes, I'll show you how to deal with a beginning annuity, the future value of a beginning annuity. And then when you read something about that annuity, it's going to have to tell you the payments will start immediately and start at the beginning of each period. So at the beginning of the first year, here's the first year, the $100 will come in a beginning annuity. And then at the beginning of the second year, right here, there'll be $100 coming in. And at the beginning of the third period, there'll be $100 coming in. So we'll cover that in a minute. But let's look at this ending annuity because the payments happen at the end of each year. And before I go any further, let's make sure we're clear on what an annuity represents. An annuity is a series of equal payments, generally equal payments, but it's a series of payments. That's what separates this from a lump sum. A lump sum is when you get literally a lump of money just at once. But with an annuity, over time, you're going to get a series of payments. Notice I put this present value in at 0 because there's no number here. There's no present value. It's basically 0, but nobody will write it as 0. So just keep that in mind. That's where we get the present value of 0. There is no present value term here. So now what we want to do is we want to compute the future value of this annuity. We want to ask, what is this future value right here of this annuity? What is it right at this point at the end of year 3? That's what we want to compute. Well, if we literally put this in our calculator, what we'll come out with after we compute future value of an annuity, hit the compute button and hit just FV, out will pop $331. And you say, oh, okay, that's $331. But how do you know that? How do you really know that, and how do you know what the calculator was doing? It's important that you have an understanding of what's going on. So it's really not that hard because I only used the 3-period annuity, is we can recompute this. We'll go recompute the 331. We're basically going to take this $100, compound it at 10% for 1 year, then compound it again a second year at 10%. So that's $100 times 1.10 to the second power, 2 periods. And we'll come up with $121. Now let's account for this cash flow. So you see how nice and neat I made this. I put the cash flows up top, and I'm doing my analysis down there, and I'm calculating everything at the exact same point in time in the future. So I'm taking 100 times 1.10 to the 1 power. You don't really need to put it to the 1 power, because if you leave it off, it'll still mathematically be the same. You end up with $110. So what's this worth in year 3? It's worth $110. So what's the value of this, future value of this whole annuity at this point in time? You're going to get $100, plus the value of this payment is going to be worth $121, and the value of this payment is going to be worth $110. This whole thing is worth $331. And a total of $31 was made in interest income. We just confirmed what popped out of the calculator. Now, you notice I didn't compound at all this $100 because there's no time period here. So you could mathematically, see this? You could say it's 100 times 1.10 to the 0 power because there's no time to compound anything. And if you take it to the 0 power, that's just 1 times 100, and you get the 100. But you don't need to do that because you already know this math. So you just add the 100, the 121, to 110, and you get $331. Okay, so that is the future value of an ending annuity. Now, one more thing. What happens if you have something like 30 years going out here? This will take you forever, but your calculator will get it done really quickly. But how do you know you don't hit a wrong button on your calculator? Well, that's where this formula comes into play. The future value of an annuity equals the payment times 1 plus I. That's the way your textbook describes the interest rate is I. Your calculator uses a button called I/Y. The interest rate per year is what that says. It means the same thing. And then it's going to be to the nth power minus 1 divided by I. And the I will be in decimal form. So it's funny. This will be in decimal form, the I. But when you shove this into a calculator, you're not going to put it in decimal form. It's not going to be 0.10. It's going to be literally 10. Just keep that in mind so you don't get confused. So if we put $100 as the payment, and then we say 1 plus 0.10 to the 3rd power minus 1 divided by 0.10. Oh, let's see what that comes out to be. This will come out to be 100 divided by 0.331 divided by 0.10, and out will pop $331. Oops, here we go, $331 right there. So I just showed you how to do it 3 ways on your calculator pretty quickly. You'll need a calculator for this, but at least you can confirm the 331 working it out by hand with this formula. Now, I'm not going to derive this formula. I derive it in other classes. Your textbook will have a simple derivation of it. You don't need to know that. You just need to know here's the formula. And then here's another way of calculating the future value, provided you have a short number of time periods. It'll take you forever if it's 30 periods, and then you're likely to make a mistake, and what's going to follow from that. So here's 3 conceptual ways of doing the math. So now, before I cover a beginning annuity, the same future value of an annuity problem, but I'm going to make it a beginning annuity, let's just make sure we have our heads on straight with the math here. So you want to calculate the top part of this fraction. Do what's inside the box here. Calculate the top part of this fraction. So it's 1.10 to the 3rd power. that'll come up to like what? 1.331 minus 1, so it'll be 0.331 here, and then divide the whole thing by 0.10. So make sure you have your order of operations down right so that you remember, so you can actually get this calculation straight. Because if you don't know your order of operations, and you might want to check that on the internet, when to take exponents, when to multiply, when to add, when to subtract, and so forth, you're going to have a hard time with this. So just refresh your order of operations somewhere along the line. Now, let's do a beginning annuity. And in a beginning annuity, the same setup here, same setup, except you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scratch out this ending, and I'm going to put beginning. And so what a beginning annuity is, the payment begins right here, the first payment, second payment, third payment. It's as if you're shifting. See these three things on my three fingers? I'm just going to shift it. There. Can I get my other finger out of the way? Just going to take these three numbers, shift it over. So it's still three payments, right? And so it's N is still 3, but it starts at the beginning of the period. Each period, it starts at the beginning. So let me get another piece of paper and actually do the calculation for you. So let's do the timeline. This is what we're going to value. And we're asking, what is the future value of this annuity right here? And you can put a little a there, I don't care, but it's the future value of this time series. It's the future value of these cash flows. So again, you're going to have payment equal to $100. N equals 3. I/Y, you know, it's 10%, 10%, 10%. So it's 10% is I/Y. The present value, now this could be a little tricky. There is no present value here. This is just a payment. This guy is a payment, this is a payment, and this is a payment. So there's no present value here because this is labeled as a payment. So the present value is 0, and we're going to compute a future value. And out will come when we do this. But before we do this, now, before we actually do this, we gotta do something on your calculator. Here's what we gotta do. So I hope you can see this a little better here. What you have to do is you're gonna have to hit second, and if you notice right here above the payment sign, see this is payment PMT, right above that you'll see little letters BGN. That means a beginning annuity. So it makes sense that it's on the payment button here, and it's BGN. So what you need to do is get it in the second mode, hit this yellow button second, hit this button, and then hit second again, and then enter as soon as I turn the calculator on. So I hit second, payment, and you notice it says, you can see that it says end. Okay, what I want to do is hit second, set. See it says begin? Now hit enter again just to make sure it sticks. And then you can clear it. And if you notice really carefully, see that little thing right up there in the upper right hand corner? It says BGN. You probably can't read it, but maybe you can. It says BGN in the upper corner. So here's the screen. It says 0.1, you know, a bunch of zeros here, and it says BGN. Now that's telling you you're calculating a beginning annuity. And since we're going to hit compute future value, we're computing the future value of an annuity that's beginning. Okay? Sometimes it's called an annuity due, by the way, but your calculator just uses BGN. And by the way, when we looked at the future value of the annuity a few minutes ago, we didn't have to go into beginning mode. Your calculator was already set up for it. So when you're doing an ending annuity like we did a minute ago, there will be no BGN here. There'll be nothing up here in the corner, nothing. And then you know you're in ending mode. Okay, you're in ending mode. Here we want to be in beginning mode, and so you better make sure that it says BGN or you'll end up calculating an ending annuity, which is sometimes called an ordinary annuity. Okay, so once we do this, what's going to pop out is minus 360. Let's see, I wrote it down here. 364.10. And it comes out negative like I discussed before because we put the payments in as positive. If you put the payments in as negative, this will come out to be a positive. So you put that as negative, this will come out as a positive. You'll know what I'm talking about. And in the context of the problem, what is the value of these $100 payments? Here, at this point in time, it's worth $364. Now notice it's a little bit bigger than the $331 that we had with an ending. So this was a beginning annuity. The ending was $331 that we looked at a few minutes ago. Okay, so let's see if we can try to explain that. And in the process, we'll calculate the future value by hand. So we'll take this $100. Take $100, multiply it by the 1 plus the interest rate to the third power. 1, 2, 3 periods. 3. This comes out to be $133. Then I'm going to take this payment. So put it right here. Somewhere I got to put it in here. Nah, let me bring it down this way. Bring it down this way. And I'm going to take this $100 and I'm going to grow it, compound it 2 periods. Because I'm compounding it this period and then this period. And that'll be worth $121. And then I have to compound this payment. And that'll be 100 times 1.10 to the 1. That'll be $110. If I add this up, whoop, by the way, I lost 10 cents here. This will be $133.10. And I add this up, it's $364.10, which is exactly what I told you earlier. So it's easy to confirm this, and that's why I've given you a really short annuity here, so we can do it by hand and confirm what we're doing. Now, in terms of the formula, remember I gave you this formula right here. Future value of an annuity, and it was the big formula we calculated the 331. Let's see if we can use a big formula here, so to speak, to calculate this 364. And the way to do it is we're going to look at the future value of an annuity that's due. That's going to equal the future value of an annuity ending times 1 plus I. That's a 1 plus I if you can't read it. So we calculated the ending to be 331. We're going to multiply it by 1.10. And when we do that, we're going to get 364.10. So by hand, by calculator, kind of by calculator, but you don't even need a financial calculator to do this. This you need a financial calculator to do, but this you can use in an ordinary calculator. And I get the 364. 3 different ways of doing it. Now let's get the intuition. Like, why is this worth a little bit more? It's worth, it's worth $33 more, right? $33.10. Well, what's happening is you're compounding this $100. You're compounding this $100 3 periods, whereas before that $100 sat right here because it was the last payment on an ending, and it didn't get compounded at all. Let me show you. So when we did the ending annuity, we took this, this, and this. This never got compounded, right? So there's no compounding. N was 0. And we just added these up and got 331. But now look what happened. There is no number right here. The number is right here. These two numbers right here stay the same. It's exactly what we saw earlier. There they are. They haven't changed. What's changed is this number doesn't exist anymore. And now we have this payment here that starts at this point because we moved these 3 payments. We moved them over. And there they are. And so we had to compound this 3 periods. And so how much more do you get by compounding this 3 periods versus 0 periods? You get $33.10. You get this right here. Plus you get the $100 back. So the whole thing is worth $364. So the important point here is the future value of a beginning annuity is always worth a little bit more than the future value of an ending annuity, assuming you have a positive interest rate. Now, if interest rates are zero, then there won't be no difference, because there's no compounding of money when you have a zero interest rate. Just plug 1 here instead of 1.10, and you'll get the math that'll show you that there's no compounding. It'll just be worth $300. Doesn't matter if it's a beginning or an ending, it's worth $300 because you're just literally adding the cash flows up. So again, this is a beginning annuity, which is sometimes called an annuity due, that we calculated. And then what we did here, we started off, was an ending annuity, which is sometimes called an ordinary annuity. And to review, when you do an ending annuity, you should not have anything up here in the upper right-hand corner. It should be blank when you do an ending annuity. And when you do a beginning annuity, you look up in this corner right here, you should see the letters BGN telling you it's a beginning annuity. Now, one of the other things you should be aware of is if you're on a quiz, you're doing your homework, and you're doing these calculations, and you're asked to do an ending annuity, then a beginning, and then an ending, make sure that you stop and ask yourself, do I have the right notation up here? In other words, am I in an ending annuity mode, or am I in a beginning annuity mode? Because what will happen is you'll forget to clear your calculator, you'll leave it in beginning mode, you'll start working on an ending annuity, and you'll get the wrong answer. You'll be off by a few dollars. So that's my word of advice. Just make sure when you're doing multiple problems, you've got the right letters up there so you know you're in the right mode, beginning or ending. So one more thing before I end this video, and that has to do with an observation about future value, present value, time value of money concepts in general. It takes a while of practice before it clicks. It may not click initially, and in most cases it won't. And then you work at it enough, then you'll be like, oh, it clicks. And once it clicks, the whole picture becomes way clearer as to what you need to do. Do I calculate a present value? Do I calculate a future value? You're going to have word problems, and you're going to scratch your head. Is that a present value they're giving me? Is it asking for a future value? What is it asking? What is it giving me? You need to sort that out, but you need to practice in order to sort that out. And that's my point here. Practice, because you won't know what you don't know until you practice. You don't want to watch the video, read the book, and say, look, I got it. I can figure this out. You get to a quiz and you find out you don't even know what buttons to press on the calculator. You don't know what the problems are asking. So again, work the problems and you'll soon find out what you don't know. Then you find out what you don't know, you'll look it up and you figure it out. And then when it comes time for a quiz, you'll be in good shape.